Hello, I'm Willie from the Ozarks, and we are ready for our January the 11th lesson or 2023 of, let's see, which is a lesson 11. Started the first of the year. Glad you all are joining me. And anyway, I'd like to point out that if you've ever been through the course and you've made it up to a certain lesson, I would encourage you just pick up at that lesson and just go on. If it's been a long gap between, just do that lesson again and just keep going. Don't necessarily start back at the beginning. If you went through it, you got to lesson 15 or 20 or 30 or 50 or whatever, and then you kind of laid it down and would pick up right there and go on. Or you can start back at the beginning. I mean, that's your own choice, obviously. I just wanted to let you know just briefly that with our lesson, let's talk about it. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. That's what we're here for, to understand what Jesus has to tell us. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And I just wanted to let you all know that I like to have these directed towards for everybody. From the youngest child, I had one born yesterday, to the day you want to leave this planet. I want anybody to feel welcome on this channel. And so I'm hoping that families will read it to their young kids, and that moms and dads that actually are wanting to learn these principles and live them and be a good example for their kids, they give them a support. That's why I do it. I mean, you get everything all in 20 minutes, 25, not much more than that. I hope try to keep them down to 20, be honest. I hope I'm always honest, but expression, to be honest with you, to be level with you. I've tried to keep it down. I wanted to do it in 15. I just, no way, could do it and get through it in 1 year. So, okay. But we'll let Jesus do most of the talking, though. I'd rather listen to him. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. This is the first idea we have had, which is related to a major phase of the correction process, the reversal of the thinking of the world. Wow. Major phase. It seems as if the world determines what you perceive. Today's idea introduces the concept that your thoughts determine the world you see. Your thoughts determine the world that you see. Be glad indeed to practice the idea in this initial form, for in this idea is your release made sure. Wow. The key to forgiveness lies in it. The keys to forgiveness lies in this idea. So we're going to have a key that's going to be forgiveness, but we got to know how to use it. So we got to learn this. Maybe this is, think of it as the door that we go through to use the key to forgiveness. Thinking my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. The practice periods for today's idea are to be undertaken somewhat differently from the previous ones. Begin with eyes closed and repeat the idea slowly to yourself. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Then open your eyes and look about, near or far, up or down, anywhere. During the minute or so to be spent in using the idea, merely repeat it to yourself, being sure to do so without haste and with no sense of urgency or effort. Okay, let's read that again. The practice periods for today's idea are to be undertaken somewhat differently from the previous ones. Begin with eyes closed and repeat the idea slowly to yourself. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world, with your eyes closed. Then open your eyes and look about, near or far, up or down, anywhere. Okay, now you just kind of look around and you just be thinking to yourself, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Well, I'll declare, look at this world. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. I don't know the meaning. It's meaningless. Then open your eyes and look about, near and far, up or down, anywhere. During the minute or so to be spent in using the idea, merely repeat it to yourself, being sure to do so without haste and with no sense of urgency or effort. Merely repeat it to yourself. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world, being sure to do so without haste and with no sense of urgency or effort. So he wants us to move around. He says, he tells us he wants us to keep moving fairly rapidly. But he doesn't want us to get rapidly mixed up with a sense of urgency. So he's emphasizing you want to do this exercise without haste and with no sense of urgency or effort, or no effort either. Just make it easy. The way to God is easy. It's the most natural thing in all the world. To do these exercises for maximum benefit, the eyes should move from one thing to another fairly rapidly, since they should not linger on anything in particular. The words, however, should be used in an unhurried, even leisurely fashion. The introduction to this idea should be practiced as casually as possible. It contains the foundation for the peace, relaxation, and freedom from worry that we're trying to achieve. On concluding the exercises, close your eyes and repeat the idea once more slowly to yourself. 3 practice periods today will probably be sufficient. However, if there is little or no uneasiness and an inclination to do more, as many as 5 may be undertaken. More than this is not recommended. Okay, I really want us to get this. These exercises for maximum benefit, the eyes should move from one thing to another fairly rapidly and should not linger on any one thing in particular. The words, however, should be used in an unhurried, even leisurely fashion. And you'll kind of think to yourself, wow, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And actually kind of really do that. Say it to yourself over and over, maybe even in different ways of saying it, like put on different personalities in your mind and look at it through their eyes. And say to yourself, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. The words, however, should be used in an unhurried, even leisurely fashion. The introduction to this idea should be practiced as casually as possible. It contains the foundation for the peace, relaxation, and freedom from worry that we're trying to achieve. On concluding the exercises, close your eyes and repeat the idea once more slowly to yourself, okay? Close your eyes. Again, at the end of you're looking at the world and telling yourself, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And then he says, open your eyes again. Or close your eyes again after you've had them opened and say it to yourself again. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And you can do all that. You probably can take a couple of minutes. I usually take a little longer. It just takes me a little time just to get kind of settled into quiet space. But I don't really count that time so much. Probably could, though. So whatever works, just do the best you can. Just make an effort. It's all that's asked for you. You don't have to be proficient, just have to make a willingness. That's the way the kingdom of God works. Holy Spirit makes all the effort part. You just be the willing part. So give yourself about 5 times today. Now, we spent a little longer on that than I would have normally, but I'm glad we did. Okay, we're going to let Jesus do some talking pretty quick here. We're learning about healing, the illusion of separation. I try to get a couple pages a day is how I do this. So if you guys can't listen to me some days and you want to just kind of stay along with me, that's how I kind of aim at it. Healing as release from fear. This is in chapter 2 of the illusion of separation, and we're in section 3, healing as release from fear. So if you want to kind of turn there, I'll give you just a second, and I'll read to you a little bit out of my friend Michael's book, EdibleLandscaping.com. And I want to tell you a little bit of, if I can find it, I had it turned to it about apples. Let's talk a little bit about apples. You can plant them. You can go out and get bare root apple. If you can find bare root apple trees, plant them in the wintertime. Arkansas black apple. Arkansas black is a permaculture tree with good for you deep red winter keeping apples. Tree very disease resistant, self-fertile. Fruits are picked late in our area and mature their best flavor after a few months storage in the fridge. Arkansas black apple is chosen as a wildlife tree since the tree is disease resistant and the fruits hang well into the late fall. You plant the apples, a lot of people plant them for deer and other animals. All animals like apples. Standard tree spacing is 20-foot circles. Dwarf spacing, 10-foot circles. zones 5 through 8. So anyway, let's be thinking about these Arkansas black apples here in the Ozarks. Boy, that's really that's the apple. They were developed up in Bentonville is what they think, and moved into the whole Ozarks, Missouri and whatever. Bentonville, Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas. Okay, healing as release from fear. The emphasis will now be on healing. The miracle is the means, the atonement is the principle, and healing is the result. Those who speak of a miracle of healing are combining two orders of reality inappropriately. Healing is not a miracle. The atonement or the final miracle is a remedy, while any type of healing is a result. The kind of error to which atonement is applied is irrelevant. Essentially, all healing is the release from fear. To undertake this, you cannot be fearful yourself. You do not understand healing because of your own fear. You do not understand healing because of your own fear. Paragraph 53, a major step in the atonement plan is to undo error at all levels. Did I say that the section here is, maybe I didn't say it again, healing as release from fear. Let's think about that. That's what we're reading about. This how they've kind of categorized it. The people that, which I'm the authors are the ones that did this original edition and put in the, is my understanding. I may have to look at that. Just like there's probably an exception. Some animals may not like apples. Like I said that a while ago. There could be exceptions. I don't know. A major step in the atonement plan is to undo error at all levels. Illness, which is really not right-mindedness. Illness, which is really not right-mindedness. Catch that. Illness, which is really not right-mindedness, is the result of level confusion in the sense that it always entails the belief that what is amiss in one level can adversely affect another. We have constantly referred to miracles as the means of correcting level confusion, and all mistakes must be corrected at the level on which they occur. Only the mind is capable of error. The body can act erroneously, but this is only because it is responding to misthought. The body cannot create, and the belief that it can, a fundamental error, produces all physical symptoms. A fundamental error. The body can create, and the belief that it can, a fundamental error, produces all physical symptoms. All physical illness represents a belief in magic. The whole distortion which created magic rests on the belief that there is a creative ability in matter which the mind cannot control. This error can take two forms. It can be believed that the mind can miscreate in the body, or that the body can miscreate in the mind. If it is understood that the mind, which is the only level of creation, cannot create beyond itself, neither type of confusion need occur. 55. The reason only the mind can create is more obvious than may be immediately apparent. The reason only the mind can create is more obvious than may be immediately apparent. The soul has been created. The body is a learning device for the mind. Learning devices are not lessons in themselves. Their purpose is merely to facilitate the thinking of the learner. The most that a faulty use of a learning device can do is to fail to facilitate learning. It has no power in itself to introduce actual learning errors. 56. The body, if properly understood, shares the invulnerability of the atonement two-edged application. This is not because the body is a miracle, because it is not inherently open to misinterpretation. The body is merely a fact in human experience. Its abilities can be frequently and are over-evaluated. However, it is almost impossible to deny its existence. Those who do so are engaging in a particularly unworthy form of denial. Wow, isn't that? Now catch that. Here he's so open-minded. He sees both sides of the picture here. I see that in this. Those who do so, however, it is almost impossible to deny the body's existence. those who do so are engaging in a particularly unworthy form of denial. The term unworthy here implies simply that it is not necessary to protect the mind by denying the unmindful. Isn't that something? The term unworthy here implies simply that it is not necessary to protect the mind by denying the unmindful. Deny the body is how he's referring there. There is little doubt that the mind can miscreate. If one denies this unfortunate aspect of the mind's power, one is also denying the power itself, the mind's ability. Wow, he really wants us to understand the power of our thoughts with God. Paragraph 57, all material means which man accepts as remedies for bodily ills are merely restatements of magic principles. It is a second misstep to attempt to heal it through non-creative agents. It does not follow, however, that the use of these very weak corrective devices is evil. Sometimes the illness has a sufficiently great hold over the mind, or a mind, to render a person inaccessible to atonement. In this case, it may be wise to utilize the compromise approach to mind and body, in which something from the outside is temporarily given healing belief. This is because the last thing that can help the non-right-minded or the sick is an increase in fear. That's the first sentence of paragraph 58. This is because, so in other words, it might be okay or useful to use something from the outside, some medicine or something, any kind of thing but still be recognizing that it's mind that has the real power to heal, is what he's hoping. He's trying to get us to see, not the body. Okay, the body is a learning device. Let's let him talk. I'll be quiet. Sometimes the illness has a sufficiently great hold over a mind to render a person inaccessible to atonement. In this case, it may be wise to utilize a compromise approach to mind and body, in which something from the outside is temporarily given healing belief. This is because the last thing that can help the non-right-minded or the sick is an increase in fear. Now keep that in mind when you're talking to your friends and trying to help them. Well, don't ever increase their fear. And that'd be counterproductive, he's saying. They are already in a fear-weakened state. If they are inappropriately exposed to an undiluted miracle, they may be precipitated into panic. This is particularly likely to occur when upside-down perception has induced the belief that miracles are frightening. 59. The value of the atonement does not lie in the manner in which it is expressed. In fact, it is truly used. If it is truly used. In fact, if it is truly used, it will inevitably be expressed in whatever way is most helpful to the receiver, not the giver. This means that a miracle, to attain its full efficacy, must be expressed in a language which the recipients can understand without fear. This means that a miracle, to attain its full efficacy, must be expressed in a language which the recipient can understand without fear. It does not follow by any means that this is the highest level of communication of which he is capable. It does mean, however, that it is the highest level of communication of which he is capable now. The whole aim of the miracle is to raise the level of communication, not to impose regression in the improper sense upon it. Isn't that beautiful? Paragraph 60. Before miracle workers are ready to undertake their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. We got to understand the fear of release to be really good givers of miracles. Otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment, a belief that is very prevalent. Most people believe it. That doesn't make it right, though, okay? That's what he's saying. This perception arose from the underlying misbelief that harm can be limited to the body. This was because of the much greater fear that the mind can hurt itself. Neither error is really meaningful because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. Wow, listen to that. Now we're talking about the meaningless world that we live in here. Neither error is really meaningful because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. This recognition is a far better protective device than any form of level confusion because it introduces correction at the level of the error. It is essential, paragraph 61, it is essential to remember that only the mind can create. Implicit in this is the corollary that correction belongs at the thought level. To repeat an earlier statement and to extend it somewhat, the soul is already perfect and therefore does not require correction. The body does not really exist except as a learning device for the mind. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it was created but is not creating. It should be obvious then that correcting the creator or inducing it to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability which is truly meaningful. Boy, there's so much there. 61 again. It is essential to remember. If it's essential, let's make sure we got it, okay? It is essential to remember that only the mind can create. Implicit in this is the corollary that correction belongs at the thought level in the mind. To repeat an earlier statement and to extend it somewhat, the soul is already perfect and therefore does not require correction. The body does not really exist except as a learning device for the mind. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it was created but is not creating. It should be obvious then that correcting the creator or inducing it to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability which is truly meaningful. That last sentence, once again, last two sentences, the learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it was created but is not creating. It should be obvious then that correcting the creator or inducing it to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability which is truly meaningful. Just hang out with that sentence so it really comes clear in your mind. He gives us, that's what I want to even meditate more on. It's a great one. Anyway, we'll stop there and let's go back and take a look. I'm setting this on the out of the way so I can get my guitar up here, but maybe I've got a little hollow little log in front of me that I set my book on. Just a little piece of firewood upright. And I don't think the wind's blowing, but let me put a little weight on it just in case. That way if the wind comes up while we're singing. I just want guys to just remember, we spent a little longer on my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. What's our, oh boy, what is our time? I can't, oh my, okay, well let's just do a little quick one, okay? Meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. 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 My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Meaningless world. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Well, that guitar got out of tune, didn't it? Anyway, hey, listen, remember, this is a really important lesson, and he says that it's going to allow us to use the keys of forgiveness, which will be coming up. We'll learn how to use the keys of forgiveness to set us free. And even though we've taken so long, I do want to just mention that there's one other audience that I really try to zero in, and that's young men and women that are thinkers. I don't care how young they are, whether you're 8 or 10 or 12, or if you're 20 or 25 or 30, but if you're trying to understand which way to head in life, man, I found it in this book, and I looked in a lot of places. Anyway, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world.